We started Culturally Speaking to indulge our curiosity about the way others live and a desire to inspire conversations about how we have far more in common than we realise.
Hey everyone, this is Janice.
And this is Neha.
And so we're back with more Culturally Speaking.
Yeah, we took the summer off. We had, a couple of months to enjoy the nice weather, to travel. What were you up to?
Well, so in the summer, I think people who follow us on Instagram saw that I was in Hong Kong for most of the summer. And that was all I can say is obviously it was very nice to see my family and friends who I haven't seen in 2 years, I think, 2 or 3 years. But it was very hot. And I think it was very hot in Europe too, right? But for people who've been to Asia in the summer, you understand the problem with humidity.
The humidity looked off the charts, I have to say, from, when we were speaking a little bit while you were in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I think the heat here, for anyone that has been in the UK or Europe, obviously we've had, I believe, one of the hottest summers on record, certainly in the UK. Very, very high temperatures and infrastructure that's not built for it, I think we can say. So yeah, I was the other end of the spectrum, in that it wasn't super humid like it was in Asia, but very, very hot here too. I did more traveling in Europe actually this summer than I think I've done in a long time. Italy and France and Greece, which was really lovely. It was really nice to have a Euro summer, but we're back, and definitely feels.
And it's I guess today at the time of recording, it's actually the day of the Queen's funeral. So this will timestamp this episode for people listening whenever. And I think, Neha, this has been a very strange 10 days.
Completely. So we're in a period of national mourning. For anyone that's not British, it's been a very peculiar time because certainly not many people, you would have to be very old to have remembered, this period of mourning when the last king passed away and the Queen came to the throne. So for a lot of people, it's the first time that they've been through the death
There
of
was the Queen Mother, right?
There was.
Her funeral. It wasn't
Yes.
it just wasn't the same.
No, and I think whilst there was that significant kind of state funeral, it wasn't. Actually, I correct myself. I don't know if it was a state funeral when the Queen Mother died.
There was a lying in state.
There was a lying in
we
state.
would have been too young, but I remember either hearing from people or watching video clips where there was the lying in state, and I don't know that there was a day off because obviously she was the Queen Mother, but there was a whole kind of, I wanted to say parade, but you know what I mean. Not a parade.
And the reason I corrected myself was I think it's a ceremonial funeral. I think the last state funeral before Queen Elizabeth II was Winston Churchill.
Really?
Yes, that's what I was
Not even for Diana.
Well, she wasn't at that time.
Oh, that's
married
right.
To
That's
Prince
right.
Charles, so
we'll come to all of that later. But I think this weekend you did something that is probably a once in a lifetime experience related to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of us that do follow us on Instagram, you may have seen some of the stories I posted, but I did go to the lying in state. It's a very long queue at various times over the week. It's ranged from, I think, 24 hours was the maximum at one point. And it was a fairly last minute decision actually for me to go. I knew I wanted to go, but I wasn't quite sure about queuing overnight. And once the times dropped down, I think when I arrived, they were anticipating it was a 14-hour wait. But it ended up being
never queued for anything for that long.
Me neither. But it ended up being about 11 and a half hours. And I have to say, we met some really wonderful people. I did it with my family. We met some wonderful people in the queue. The mood, it was hard to describe and encapsulate, but the queue itself, I think people were just very aware that this was a moment in history. and people wanted to be there to pay their respects. I think as you got closer to where the coffin was at Westminster Hall, you know, that final part, the mood definitely shifted and it changed. I got to see her just after midnight, so it was late in the evening, and as you entered the hall, I mean, the first thing is silence. It just sort of struck you about how silent it was in there. You know, people use the expression pin drop silence, but it genuinely was. And just peaceful, very peaceful. Didn't feel particularly rushed or hurried, despite the long wait. You know, everyone really did just have their time to walk by, and it moved people in very different ways. You know, some people are very overcome, some people were just very obviously very solemn, but it felt, I say this, if anyone's ever sort of experienced the passing of a grandparent or a loved one of that generation, I think you and I both said it, right? She just felt like everyone's grandmother or great grandmother, depending on how old you were. But seeing her there, the coffin, the way that it was guarded, the crown, the orb, the spectre, it felt like a very momentous occasion, if I can say that. Yeah.
Okay, I need some practicalities.
Okay. Go on.
Was everyone just standing? Like, was it a kind of constantly moving queue?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spoke a little bit about this on the stories and tried to sort of capture it, but the queue does move. So there's not really a chance to sit or pause. You are on your feet. Most of it, you know, you get a wristband once you join the queue, and that means, you know, you can go for a toilet break, or if you need to get food or water or anything.
So there
like
are
that.
toilets.
There are blocks of portable toilets that have been set up all the way along the route. There's some very kind people who even have signs, you know, saying, you know, you can use the toilet here if you'd like to. There's pubs, restaurants, cafes, etc., all along the way. Okay. So yeah, there's more than enough provision, and it's very well organized, I have to say. They did an incredible job putting that together in such a short period of time. And like I said, you are on your feet. It is strenuous. I can see why they told people that, you know, don't bring children if you've got mobility issues, or, you know, there is an accessibility queue for anyone who did want to do that. Also, those time slots, I think, got booked up very, very quickly, and you are still standing in that accessibility queue as well. It's just a short.
Right, so you book a time for when you get there, basically.
I believe so. With the accessibility, that's how it worked. And then the queue is shorter, and you do start at a different point. Right. So I started at Southwark Park. So if anyone kind of is thinking of the map of London, you know,
that's not right too away.
But it is a good couple of, I think I put it on the Insta stories. You know, it was 22,000 steps on my feet, which is not terribly sort of far. You know, if you've sort of done a day of sightseeing, it's not a particularly long distance. It's just that you are on your feet, and there is standing. So, but the mood is good. I have to say, the one thing I really sort of appreciated was, because you can't take any food or drink into the hall because you go through airport staff security, they basically had a food bank of all the food and drink that people turned in. So, and they then offer it up out into the queue. So none of it's wasted, which I thought was a really nice touch. There's blankets and things on offer because, as you said, it's people that are overnight. It gets very cold. So there was really a sense of people taking care of each other. And I think if there was something that would encapsulate like the Britishness of a queue and humanity and looking out for everybody, that would be it.
We do like a queue.
We do, and there is almost an irony in it. But yeah, I'm very glad I went.
Yeah, I was talking about this with some relatives on the weekend, who are, you know, also Chinese, and I understand that it's the Queen. And do you remember when she passed, I also said, oh, I feel a bit sad too. Like, although I wasn't born in this country, I have lived here long enough to understand the country's connection, right, to the Queen. And it is sad that it is someone's grandma, mother, great grandma who passed away. But for me, it was a strange thing that people who are not related to her were so eager to go look at her coffin. I understand that it's a once in a lifetime, it's a historical moment, but I think that for me takes away the fact that she's a person, like she's not a news headline, she's a person. And for me, that's just strange. Like, no issue with people like yourself who went to do it, right? And obviously a lot of people went to do this. It's just, I think in my culture, unless it's so in Taoist funerals, like my late granddad's, it is an open casket, but everybody who goes there are family and friends. Yes. So it's for you to say your last goodbyes, to see them for the last time. And look, an alive person looks very different to an alive person, and it's not, despite the best efforts of the embalm or whatever, it's not a pleasant thing, to be honest. And I just found the whole idea a bit absurd. Like, and I can hear royalists out there threatening me already, but
I do know
it's just
what
very alien to my culture.
I do know what you mean. So we also, where possible, open casket, I have seen that, but it, as you say, it's contained to just family, close connections, friends, etc. I think the difference, if I can kind of offer a counter argument, is whilst of course there's very deep personal connections within her family, and I think we saw that with sort of the outpourings and the messages from her family sort of paying tribute to her, but she isn't just another lady. I think there is that other side of her, which is, I hesitate to say otherworldly, but
I know what you mean. Her presence transcends like multiple layers, but I guess I'm just being cynical, right? Of all the people who went to pay their respects, how many are tourists, cultural tourists, who would be taking selfies? I know it's not allowed inside, but when they're in the queue, kind of doing it for the gram. How many are those people versus how many people are truly there to pay respects? I'm just cynical.
I will say, the queue had its moments of lightheartedness too. I wouldn't say it was always solemn and serious. I certainly wasn't the whole time. I think you do also have to keep your spirits up when you're waiting. But on the whole, what I really found was the range of ages. I'll take the example of when I was there, there were people sort of in their early 20s, right the way up to people in their 70s, 80s, just around us. And that's, those are sort of three pretty distinct generations. And they all just said sort of the same thing of, we regret not coming. We just wanted to come and see and pay our respects and feel like we were a part of a moment. And I think there was also this acknowledgement, we won't have another queen in our lifetime. Which it does sound sort of odd to say, because we've always sort of grown up saying the queen, or long live the queen, God save the queen, and now it's always sort of king, and it hasn't quite rolled off the tongue just yet.
No, I think it will take everybody a little time. It's like, when people get married and then change their last names in the system at work and nobody calls them that. I think there will be a little bit of that.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there was talk of, would he be King Charles? Because they can choose a name.
What would he choose, though?
I think there was talk of, would it be George? But obviously in the end it didn't end up happening. But isn't that funny? Imagine if somebody said to you one day, like, you're no longer going to be Janice. You're going to have a completely different name that you'll be known by in public.
I mean, celebrities do that, right? Actors.
When they get famous.
Actresses, yeah. I'll probably have like a name, just first name, like no last name, like Madonna or Beyonce.
Yeah, the single name, when you reach that level of notoriety. Yeah, I think so. And also,
but I think sorry, you go ahead.
I think the names that they have, obviously, if you're the second or the third or the eighth or the ninth, there's a kind of a difference, right? And they said that this was the second great Elizabethan age because of what had come before. But imagine being kind of, I don't know, what would be Henry the Ninth.
I don't think anyone will ever be Henry again in their family. after that, Henry.
That's what I mean. It's a lot to live up to. So there is quite a lot in the name, I think.
Speaking of which, so because of all the kind of, I guess, flood of things about the royal family these 2 weeks, I had a look at why they're called the Windsors, and I wonder how many people listening actually know kind of the origins of why they became the Windsors. Because if you look at, so the most famous, I guess, would be the Tudors. You know, there's TV shows about it, films about it. Obviously, that ended with a rather scandalous story, but I mean, you're the historian, right?
Yes.
Between the two of us. Yeah, and I'll be honest, yeah, to everybody listening, I did not grow up in this country, and therefore I did not read any British history. And we'll talk about, you know, what history I know, maybe another different episode. But people, I think not many people outside of the country probably know that our royal family are pretty much German.
Yes,
by blood.
Yes.
Right. And there's a very, you know, going back few, I would say, dynasties. It's all the royal families in Europe are the
All
same
connected.
people.
Yes.
You know, there's cousins marrying each other, and it's just, let's say, a bit chaotic, genetically speaking. But by and large, you know, everybody was German. And what I watched this documentary around 1916, 1917, when anti-German sentiments were rife everywhere, right? And in this documentary, bless, they were like, oh, even dachshunds on the street were getting kicked by people because they were German dogs. How mean is that? That's terrible.
But it's for anyone kind of that isn't aware that it was the House of the Saxe-Coburgs.
Yes.
But there was a very conscious decision to change that to Windsor post World War One, because of the associations. And it is interesting how you can just make a new name, a new dynasty.
Yeah, and in the documentary I watched, they actually, you know, read these handwritten letters from the king's advisor, etc., kind of trying to pick a better name. And eventually they picked, you know, Windsor after the castle. And it was Elizabeth, what's her name? Bowes-Lyons or something. So the Queen Mother, basically.
So the Queen. Okay, so
she's English.
Yes.
Right. So it was her that brought back the English heritage to the royal family.
I believe she was also Scottish.
Quite possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my understanding. So, and isn't it interesting how Windsor as well is where the final resting home of the monarchs. You know, to be buried there today. So yeah, it's like I said, there's a lot in a name.
Yeah, and I was kind of just from that point on, you know, I was just watching a few documentaries, reading up about that lineage, and it's quite a lot of scandals, right?
Okay.
And I would say,
what did you find?
Okay, so for example, it was Edward VIII, right, who was in the throne, but he had fallen in love with an American divorced woman, which sounds familiar, right? And because of that, there was a lot of quite obvious, but also almost petty moves, right? So he abdicated. And then George,
the woman he loved.
Exactly. I mean, I think in history, countless emperors and, I don't know, army generals, whatever, they just give everything up for love. And it's kind of nice, but also people don't learn.
I mean, I think it's bizarre because you nor I understand being born into something that there's no disputing it, isn't it? That, you know, you are born and that is the role that you're supposed to have. There isn't necessarily choice in the matter unless you remove yourself from the situation. And to do that means that you have to but it's heated and you abdicate and you renounce it.
Mm.
It's not like you can get to pick and choose the bits that you want or don't want.
Yeah. And sometimes I guess, you can't change someone's personality or what they really like doing, etc. But you would think that this is a very strong tradition, yeah? You would think you'd be educated from the minute you were born and crying that this is your, God-given duty, etc., etc. But I guess, as times move on and people get more information from everywhere, that's where people gain, I guess, more agency in what they want to do. And obviously, once he abdicated, right, it went to George.
Yeah.
And I was reading about how they had the opportunity when the Russian Tsar was overturned. They originally were supposed to give asylum to the Romanovs, and
Yes.
then they didn't. And then it was the very famous incident where they were all just gunned down, basically, in the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine making that decision, because George and Nicholas were like best buds.
And also
Like they were
distantly related
close.
as
Yeah, I
well.
think they were
Yeah.
cousins,
I
as
believe
well
so.
as really good close friends, and basically for the good of the British royal family, and keeping the I guess the royal family going on, the decision was made to not save them. And yeah, no wonder he hated being a king. And it fell on his lap as well, right? He didn't have a choice.
I was going to say, in the same breath as I said being born into something, also being born and knowing realistically you don't expect to do it. So he wasn't raised as an heir to the throne necessarily. The same way, he wasn't necessarily supposed to be in that role. So when it came to it,
Yeah.
I think it's very well documented, isn't it? I mean, there's countless films. There's also documentaries. His stammer,
Yeah.
for a start, was
A great film though, The King's
yes,
Speech.
indeed, very very good film. And I think the people you have around you probably makes a huge difference, right? To the kind of
I do wonder what they get taught, like for people who are born to be the next heir, like to be next in line, what do they get taught? Like, do they get taught a lot of like strategy things even as a child, how to communicate, how to negotiate?
I think there must be a lot of that sort of it's almost an apprenticeship learning from your parent because they're
Yeah.
doing it in real time. So I imagine, yes, I imagine they are taught, one, just the masses of information that come their way.
The art of diplomacy.
Yes, you talked about communication, being able to
Yeah.
say the right thing at the right time. I mean, that takes an enormous amount of
I
skill.
mean, the late Philip seems to have missed that lesson.
But again, not somebody that was
No.
I mean, he came from a family that were in exile in Greece, which is another really
Yeah.
interesting situation. But yeah, he never sort of particularly conformed. But if you think about the reigns of monarchs, I mean, Queen Elizabeth in particular, very rarely did she say the wrong thing. I mean, she had some moments of, less than favorable reactions, but it's quite a thing to know exactly what to say and what not to say as well. I think more importantly, I think somebody said it quite well in the commentary this week where they said the crown can never be seen to be ahead of its time or behind its time. It's just got to be just sort of on the money of the moment.
And I think I remember when Meghan was, before Harry and Meghan's wedding, there were a few like shows on TV about all the rules
Yes.
within the palace. And my God, this historian, he was saying that every little girl grows up, dreaming, wanting to be a princess. You probably don't if you could help it. It sounds terrible. Like, one of the things that about me is I like having my nails done.
Yes.
Can't have colored nail varnish. It has
No.
to be neutral.
Yeah. Well,
No. That's not okay.
Was it she wore a particular color and there was sort of uproar about the fact that she'd worn a color? Because I think,
Well,
like you say, they're supposed to wear neutral colors.
yeah. And there were a few things I remember that there was a program about Diana, and they were talking about how she broke all the rules, basically. For example, wearing low-cut dresses,
Mhm.
showing her shoulder, wearing a skirt without tights. And I feel like the royal family has modernized, definitely within our lifetimes. But some of these rules just seem absurd.
And also, do you think some of it is to just set them apart, to make them different and seem sort of detached somewhat from the average person?
Yeah. And on the program, they were like, once she gets married to Harry, she won't be able to just pop down to the shop. There's
Is
always
that
at least one police officer within
right?
shouting
Okay.
distance. Yeah.
So you mean the sort of never being alone? There's always a presence of somebody around. Yeah, that is a bizarre thing, isn't it? To know that you're never truly on your own.
Do you think they have phones? Like personal mobiles?
So I heard that sometimes they have like secret like social media accounts. So apparently
For what
Harry used to have
purpose?
so he used to have an Instagram account. And like but under like a pseudonym, obviously. Well, to be like a normal person, right? To interact, socialize, etc.
But how much of their lives are going to be like normal people, apart from eating, sleeping, and going to the bathroom?
I don't know because do you know, for example, like the president of the United States isn't allowed a phone with all the like normal functions that you and I have, like in case somebody can record him or like use it as
Yeah.
a spying device. So I don't know. I don't know if maybe they do have phones, but they're very restricted in what you can
I
do with
mean,
them.
I was thinking, right? So normally, what do I use my phone for? If I'm WhatsApping you, other friends, or I don't know, if I need to make a booking, make an arrangement. Technically speaking, once you're in the royal family, I don't think you have friends anymore,
What do you
right?
got?
Because
So you're saying they don't have friends at all, like real friends?
I don't think so. Because you wouldn't be allowed to, go for drinks with the girls.
I think they do though. You just don't hear about it.
Hmm. I don't think so. I think everything would be by appointment.
I mean, do you not remember the really embarrassing dad dancing that William did when he was on that holiday with his friends?
Okay, but his friends, they're not like mates down the pub. They will all be in that upper echelon of society where they probably also don't have phones and they have assistants who organize everything for them.
Okay, but they're still friends.
Uh,
You mean like there's no group chat where you're like sending funny memes?
yeah, I just don't think anything about their lives are normal.
Hmm.
Um, so before we move on to what you will tell us, which is probably more historically accurate and more knowledgeable. So I was reading about all the shocking rules that royals are required to follow. You probably already know quite a few of these, but let's see how many our listeners know.
Were you just shook by any of them before we start?
Not particularly. They're a bit over the top, in my opinion, because I'm, a commoner. But yeah, so far none of them are too appalling, I think. So, for example, when the Queen stands, you stand. And I think, to be honest, because part of my family are European, and we've got people who are from, I guess, the last generation. Anytime any woman stands up at the table to go to the bathroom, all the men stand up. So that to me is okay. It's I don't expect that of our peers now in the UK,
It's
but it was
interesting.
also not
Yeah.
shocking.
We used to have to stand as well at school, like when the head teacher would go by or she
Yeah,
came
it's
into
a
the
sign of
room.
respect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So curtsies and bows, I think we all know about that. But just to remind everybody, in case anyone meets King Charles in the future, this is not that ridiculous, overly grand gesture. It's just for women, it's just a kind of dip with a leg
Bob,
behind.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a lot of curtsying to the Queen at the lying in state. Naturally.
And heirs travel apart. I think that's not shocking at all. Even CEOs of a company do that. So the Queen's purse, and a slight sidebar, I just adore that she wears the brightest color. And she has that's one of the rules. Yeah, she is always the one with the brightest color. Although I often wondered, wouldn't that make it super easy for snipers?
Well, I think it's twofold, isn't it? One is so that she can stand out in a crowd, and I think, famously said, if I wore beige, I'd just be lost in a sea of nothingness for a crowd. Is it easy? I mean, I think the security just must be beyond anything you and I can even imagine.
She's never worn a bad color.
I don't think there is a bad color.
Yeah, like we must have seen her in every color possible, and it's great.
Do you know when she has an umbrella, they make the like trim match her outfit?
Imagine if we had that kind of ability to have everything match everything. So the Queen's purse isn't just an accessory. She uses it to send subtle social signals. So when she places her clutch on the table at dinner, it means it's time to wrap things up. And she swaps from her left to her right. It means she wants to finish talking to you, basically. And I've seen various, people on British telly say that when they met the Queen, the handshake is a sort of shake and she pushes you away. Like, not in a horrible way, but it's just a shake and off you go. That's it. No PDA. So I think Harry and Meghan really changed that, right? Even these few days, you see that they were hugging people, holding hands, and I think obviously we know about Mexit, but I think they have challenged a lot of these traditions.
Yeah.
Marriage proposals require permission. So
this is only now, though, if you're up to the sixth in line sixth in line to the throne. Then you need the sovereign's
too weird. I don't think that's too weird.
Yeah. It caused issues, though. Yes. I think at the time it caused issues with people like Princess Margaret wanting to marry somebody that, was deemed not suitable. But yes, they had a law change, so now it just limits it to the first six.
So this is something that calls to me and you who adore flowers. Bridal bouquets must include myrtle.
Yes.
I think that's really cute because it symbolizes hope and love, basically, and every royal bride has it.
And they also do that bouquet at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Westminster Abbey.
Really?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, so royals were not allowed to marry a Roman Catholic until 2011.
Indeed.
And it's interesting that because both of us, I think we can safely call ourselves atheists in that sense. Sometimes it shocks me how much religion comes into play.
I think I wouldn't necessarily say I'm an atheist, but yeah, I'm certainly not a Roman Catholic. I'll just safely say that. I think what you have to remember is the sovereign is also head of the Church of England. So she is considered, or he now is.
Yeah, and we separated out, right, from the Catholic Church.
Yes, and that was a big deal in itself. But I think the fact that they are considered the head of the Church of England,
and they have that's a long grudge.
Yes, but I meant more as well. I think faith is a big part of their sort of belief, and I think if you go back to the divine right of kings as well, they do believe that they were put on earth to rule by God. I know that sounds like a very bizarre thing to you and I.
Oh, I know, yeah.
But there is, legitimate belief. They think that they are descended from people that were put on earth to rule. It blows my mind, but yes.
Yeah. And so this doesn't really affect us, but no nicknames are allowed.
So how did she end up with something like Lilibet?
Oh, so they are allowed nicknames given to them by their families, but everybody must address them by their full given names.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they can call her Kate, but she's Catherine.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Although it was Henry. He was
You
born
mean
Henry.
he is Henry, right?
Yes. Yes. Oh, he would have been Henry the ninth, eighth,
Ninth, because we had him
ninth,
in here.
ninth. Yeah. No one even remembers him. What else? So bright colors we talked about. So everybody has to pack a full set of black clothing whenever
Yes,
they travel, which
indeed.
I think is a good rule to follow anyway.
It's practical.
Yeah, and for people who don't know about this rule, it's because if there's an unfortunate death during the trip, then everybody has suitable attire. And to be honest, like I think just I wear mostly black anyway.
I mean, I
I
have to
think
say,
it's a good rule.
I'm not in mourning colours today, but yes, I can see that.
And modesty, we already talked about. So cleavage is deemed unacceptable. And I think Diana, there's a few famous photos of her where when she came out of the car, she would hold her clutch just to cover her chest. She was a lady of great fashion as well. She was beautiful.
Indeed. And just so many iconic moments as well that have like stood the test of time and become like reference points for other people when they wear, you know, and sort of pay homage to her. Yes, I agree completely.
And this one's quite funny. So we talked about the Queen's purse. Yeah. So there's another rule around what royal women having to carry a clutch bag.
Okay.
And do you know why that is? Apart from to cover your cleavage.
No, but I've noticed they all do have it, even though they don't carry anything, like they don't carry any money, obviously, or anything like that.
And I don't think they have a phone.
No.
So
What is it for?
apparently, holding a clutch, typically with both hands, gives them a reason to not shake hands with commoners.
Okay.
I don't know how true this is. This is just what I've read.
Have you noticed that like the Queen always used to wear gloves, white gloves?
Mm,
You never saw her hands really.
yeah.
I think that's
Maybe
gone
she's got
away.
like bright fuchsia nail polish.
I
under
mean,
the glove.
scandalous.
Yeah, and also, have you noticed that nobody ever has like a wardrobe malfunction? So I think they have a million like, tapes, whatever.
I think you
They
would
probably
though.
have pockets in their dresses.
Oh, love a dress with pockets. Yeah, I mean there's a whole army of people, right, that help them look the way they look because I mean those images firstly last forever. We live in a digital media age. But secondly, they get broadcast everywhere. You know, it doesn't take long for that to go viral. And so yeah, I think if you had that many eyes on you, you'd want to be perfect.
Mm.
You know, look very presentable.
And I'll finish off with a few around eating, if that's what we care about. So shellfish is not allowed to be served at royal meals.
Yes.
That's devastating.
For me, particularly as a pescatarian, yeah, that is particularly sad.
The Queen is not a fan of garlic, and therefore none of the prep for dinner that she would eat will have garlic in it.
No. They also
That's
are
also
never seen to
devastating.
drink in public, apparently. Like they'll never be you'll never notice they have like a glass of wine or something normally.
Really? I have okay. I have not noticed that, but now you say it.
It's always water.
And when the Queen finishes eating, everybody finishes eating.
Yes, once she's done, everybody's done.
If she's not hungry, you better have pockets for snacks.
Or like, is she a fast eater? Because if she's a fast eater and everyone else is slow, that's it. Like you're done for.
I don't imagine any of them eat fast though, because they're all,
The etiquette.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a specific way to drink tea apparently, which is not how we do it in a great big mug. So
No.
obviously it's very delicate teacups.
Yeah.
It's usually at around 3,
Yeah.
like the afternoon tea. And there's a way where you pinch the top of the teacup handle with your thumb and index finger and place your middle finger to support the bottom of the handle.
Okay.
And you are advised to try and sip from the same spot so you don't get lipstick stains all around.
Yes.
That's so much effort. I just want tea. You know?
I
Yeah.
just want the really cute cucumber sandwiches.
And yeah, so I think that pretty much sums up what I know about the royal family, which is all the peripheral fun stuff.
I think they are just such an enigma, though, because there's a reason the rest of the world are also obsessed with the British royal family.
Mm.
They're just so eccentric as well. I can't think of any other royal family that is as interesting as ours. One of the things that I've been speaking to has been asking me, because they're not British, is like, does the king or queen actually rule? Like, what is their role? Because
Yeah. What's their job?
exactly, because this is a constitutional monarchy in Britain, which means that they don't actually have any power per se, but they are ceremonial. So, we had a new prime minister literally now kind of just over 10 days ago, right? Just before the Queen passed away. And so when a new government is formed, the incoming, prime minister that's been either elected or put forward by the party has to go, they call it like the kissing of the hands. And they have to go and meet the monarch and ask to form a government in their name. And only the king or queen can give permission for that. And that's like something that's ceremonial. They also no law comes into effect until it passes royal assent. And I think the last time like a monarch refused to pass a law was back in the early 1700s, so a very long time. So it is just a formality, but it is something that has to be done. And there's like state opening of parliament every year where the monarch gives a speech. That's where they wear like the robes, very ceremonial again. And the red boxes. Could you know about these? You do, okay. So at the end of the day, the monarch gets this red box from cabinet full of all the papers. And I find it really interesting because they're not elected, they don't govern anything. But they are very intrinsically aware of everything that's going on. And I wonder, what do they do with that knowledge? Like, because they can't influence anything, but they are informed.
I don't know. I think it's really hard for any of us to imagine that life, because back a few generations, right? I think there was more involvement by the royal family on decisions. But then as I guess the political scene like changed throughout time, then obviously now, as you say, it's a constitutional monarchy. And I don't know. I wonder if they might even indirectly influence something just by demonstrating dislike for something, or passing comment. Because at the end of the day, if the late queen, or if now the king, wanted to, they could say no. They could refuse to give but they won't, right? They haven't in so long.
No, exactly. And I guess it's that thing about impartiality, right? They're not supposed to ever really show their political allegiance one way or the other, because governments will come and go and change, and the mood of the country may swing left to right or the center, but they remain a constant. It's not like they can change when there's a new election. It's not like you could, imagine if you were like staunchly supportive of one person and you absolutely didn't like the other, and then they came to power. You'd be a bit screwed, wouldn't you?
It's interesting now you mention it, right? Obviously most people in this country will have opinion on which party or which end of the political spectrum they lean towards, but the royal family can't have an opinion, actually.
Or if they do, I don't think they're allowed to express it. I think that's the difference.
I mean, their behaviors, I think you can probably gather, what's important to whom in the royal family.
Yeah, I think as well, like, did you watch The Crown at all?
No, it really didn't draw me in.
Mm, that's sad because
I,
I quite
I
liked it.
don't know why. I'll be quite up for watching the new film about Diana. You know, the one
Okay.
where Christian Stewart, because everybody's raving on about how
Yeah.
perfect she got the accent down to. And I think, I don't know, like having grown up in Hong Kong, where when I was born, we were still British. So I was aware of the Queen, obviously, but my childhood wasn't, you know, on the news. It wasn't talking about the royal family, what they did, whatever, apart from when Diana died in
Mm.
that accident. Um, so I guess my concept of the royal family mainly came from Disney films, you know, like, do you know what I mean? Like they're kind of fictional people and there's no connection with them.
There is something sort of fairy tale like about them. Like,
But then you look at all the scandals and all the adultery, you know, it's it's weird if you think about it. They're just humans.
they are, but I think like which human goes and lives in a place like that or gets, that kind of treatment, like all the rules that you talked about. That's the thing that makes them othered in a sense. They're not like you
It
and I.
it must feel, if you're marrying into this family, it must feel so weird, like you've been pulled into a parallel universe because you go up to Balmoral. What the hell is that? You go hunting like a normal person. Obviously, I understand the concept of hunting, but I don't think you would ever understand how weird it feels like to hang out with the royal family because you're almost in your own stratosphere.
Yeah, you're in your own social like strata. But isn't that also why traditionally, way back when, you mentioned it earlier, like they all married people from other royal families, so they also understood the weirdness.
Oh God, but inbreeding is not good, right?
Well, isn't that why, like, literally, they all had haemophilia when they were all descendants of Queen Victoria? Because do you remember, like, the Russian royal family where it ran in the family,
Mm.
and then all the heirs were like really sick all the time? That's what happened because the gene pool was so small. I'm being serious.
No, no, I
So
know, I know. I'm just like, but that's like almost common knowledge now, right? And then somehow maybe it wasn't common knowledge back then.
yeah, so but I guess I have to say, would you like to ever see a world where we didn't have them, or are you very like I'm supportive and I like having them?
I think on a practical level, I'm a bit indifferent because as we've already gathered, right, they don't actually have a lot of power in that sense. But I quite like the symbology of it, I think. I think it's quite a quaint thing, tradition to keep.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sort of rabidly one way or the other, but I
Mm.
think we're better with them potentially than without for a whole host of reasons. I mean, people look at it very sort of
It
black or white, and like some people are like, oh, they're great for the country because of the tourism. Some people are great because of the history and the culture, and it makes us
it
significant.
does feel like it has very abruptly changed direction though when Brexit happened and then now we have a new king.
Mm.
It does feel like it was, we've completely changed course now. So I'm not sure if I feel the same about the royal family now.
I think as well, though, it's that evolution. It's like as society changes, so too do they to have to be
Mm,
relevant and to speak to kind of what is happening. Because if you think like her father, so the Queen's father, I mean, he was an emperor. There was an empire.
mm,
I mean, that's not that long ago in the grand scheme of
yeah,
things.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, Charles is in his 70s, right? So I don't know what kind of a king he will be.
Yeah, because he's been waiting so incredibly long. Like, imagine waiting your whole life.
The longest apprenticeship.
in history. Yeah, somebody, that's what everyone's been saying, right? I also said to somebody, like, don't you think it's a really, like, horribly sad and, like, very morbid, but he's now an orphan, but you also, the death of your parent brings you the biggest promotion you're ever gonna get.
Yeah.
Like, the juxtaposition of those two feelings. Like, imagine if somebody told you, like, you're now going to get the most important job you're ever going to have in your life, but it comes at the sacrifice
I
of.
mean, nothing about this has been typical, right? So his mother passes away, and then 2 days after he was crowned, right? Like officially, and then continues working. Nothing's normal about this.
No.
He doesn't even get 1 day off, and then the
No.
entire world is talking about his mum. And old photos, old scandals, everything gets thrown out.
But also, like, if you think about when he dies and Prince William becomes king, he also will be an orphan.
So I think because everybody really, not everybody, most people really, really adored the Queen. I don't think Charles got the warmest reception to becoming king. No.
Oh.
I think people were kind and kind of, it was better than I expected. But the whole thing about him and Camilla and the whole Diana thing, I just think he got, bad rap.
And, like, a lot more supportive than people thought it would be.
No, definitely. But I still don't think people are like, oh, we're so excited for Charles to be king.
Right.
It'll be King Charles. Whereas everybody's like, when will William become king? Like people just adore William and Kate in a different way to Charles and Camilla.
Yes, I do understand what you're saying. But also, I mean, he will also be, later in his years before he gets to that point, probably. And none of them are going to, rule as long as the Queen did because she was so young.
Yeah. I was thinking the next time anybody sings the anthem, I bet you everybody will sing the first sentence wrong.
Because it's going to take a moment to get into that sort of cadence of, because in the funerals obviously today, and they sang God Save the Queen for the last time.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
That is sad.
And obviously
but
Charles
it's been
doesn't
God
sing
Save
it.
the Queen for 70 years.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go and do some revision on the lyrics.
I was about to say, are you really British if you don't know all the words?
I don't know, because I feel like I do, but I'm not very confident because I've not had to sing it a lot.
Oh.
When everybody's singing it, then yeah, like at a game or at something, because we had to sing it at school when I was
I
still
don't
here.
remember singing it at school, but I do know what you mean about like big performances or you go to a game. And I always find it really funny.
Remember, I didn't grow up here.
No, I know.
But I know the Chinese national anthem word for word because we had to learn that when we had the handover.
Right.
So it was much more drilled into me than God Save the Queen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I find it really funny. Do you know when they like focus in on like players' faces when the anthem
Oh yeah, nobody. Everyone's like just rah rah rah. Like nobody's doing it.
And then they actually focus on if they're singing or lip syncing the thing. And I'm like, if you had a camera in your face, and I mean, I don't have the best singing voice, I would not want to be videoed.
But I would mute my voice too if I think someone's right next to my face. I wouldn't want them to hear me.
No.
But it's kind of like Auld Lang Syne, Like people don't really know the words.
No, they just know the tune. I just saw the tune. And then like the line.
Yeah. Which is the most important bit anyway.
I know.
Do you think Queenie hums it to herself sometimes?
Well, they don't sing it, right? Because if you watch, like Charles didn't sing it, obviously, because it's you're singing to me. I don't need to sing this.
Yeah. I don't know. From everything I've seen, she sounded like a very jolly old lady.
Oh, I imagine she was like really fun, but just not in a way that was like on show. I imagine in private she was very fun.
Yeah.
Oh, what a lady. One of the things she will be remembered for most, just in the age of visual media, is her outfits. We've got some photos of all of her fabulous outfits in the many colors on our Instagram. So go check that out. But yeah, I definitely recommend that you try and watch The Crown. I think you'll like it. The first seasons are really funny.
Okay, so when I went onto Netflix, I saw that I had tried to watch the first series, but I don't remember any of it. So clearly I did not enjoy it.
Oh. I think there's going to be a massive upsurge in like people wanting to go back and watch it.
I'll give it another try. I think it's mainly because the earlier parts of that family I wasn't very familiar with.
Right.
So I'll give it another try.
I think it'll be very apt as well. Yeah. I think it'll be very apt because it starts at the beginning or the end of her father's reign and the beginning of hers. And so I think with that transition happening now, it'll feel like it'll make sense.
What was the film with Helen Mirren? Oh, it's just called The Queen. Okay.
The Queen.
Yeah. I thought that was a really good film.
Yes.
And for people who want to know about the George before, I think The King's Speech was also a very well made film.
Colin Firth, Helena Bonham Carter. Excellent.
Yeah. Slight sidebar, did you know Colin Firth learned Italian for love?
Okay, that probably makes sense because his wife?
Yeah. So he learned Italian to basically suck up to his future in-laws, and he actually speaks fluent Italian now.
I can see that.
So check out our Instagram and subscribe, like, review, or contact us if you have any other things you want us to cover or if you have feedback for us.
Subscribe, rate, and review on your favourite podcast platform and follow us on Instagram at Culturally Speaking Podcast. You can also check out our website, culturallyspeaking.co.uk, for a transcript of this episode. Share your stories or your show ideas with us by sending us an email at theculturallyspeaking@gmail.com.